Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Brownies for Breakfast with me, April Federico. And I'm going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart because this does have to do a little bit with the inner child. And technically, I wasn't supposed to be here. And no, I am not talking about my near-death experience with diabetic ketoacidosis. In fact, I am talking about how I manifested teaching and entrepreneurship despite the odds. So, to give you a little backstory, I wasn't the student teachers expected much from. I had a 504 plan and I had an IEP. I was the one pulled out of class for quote unquote extra help, the one who needed extended time on exams, and just general reminders to stay organized. And growing up in a middle class family where money was always tight, and keep in mind, my dad also had cancer, so this added to the financial stress. And my dreams often felt too expensive to chase. So the message I received, both directly and indirectly, was simple: keep your expectations realistic. Don't dream too big. Just get by. And like my childhood best friend always said, don't get your hopes up. You're just a kid. But something in me knew I was meant for more. Even as a young child, I found myself watching my teachers, not just as educators, but as guides, mentors, and everyday heroes. Despite challenging school was for me at times, especially in middle school, I knew deep down that I wanted to stand where they were standing, at the front of the classroom. Even the bad teachers, I'm sorry to say it, but not all teachers are great. But helping others discover their potential was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to prove that someone like me, someone who is neurodivergent, someone with learning differences, someone who didn't grow up with financial privilege or even a cape house, could do it. Manifesting that dream was not easy. It wasn't as simple as just writing it down in a journal or wishing upon a star. It took grit. It took work. It took rejection, self-doubt, and many moments where I questioned if I was just delusional for believing this could happen. But here's the key: I kept showing up. I worked harder than anyone ever realized after I transferred high schools. So if you went to high school with me, you know just how hard I worked, to the point of burnout at one point. And not just to keep up, but to rise above what I had been through in the past. I advocated for myself like a lawyer, to the point where my classmates were like, yeah, you're going to be a lawyer. And I wasn't. But I learned how I learned best. I sought mentors who saw me, not just for my struggles, but for my resilience. And some of these mentors were actually at a major Boston hospital where I was lucky enough to volunteer at, because I took a chance and applied, and I was accepted out of the 30 applicants that they received. And I made a huge difference in their oncology department. And they still ask about me to this day, my dad says. And and here's the thing, another thing. I stopped waiting for permission to chase the life that I envisioned. I thought at the time that I could go into like a med field, or like, it's funny because the town I grew up in is Medfield, Mass. And I I thought I was going to be like a lawyer with a cool chemistry background, but things change, people change, life changes, but you end up where exactly you're supposed to be. And eventually that happened for me in a classroom less than a month ago, not as a student needing accommodations, but as a teacher creating them. I became the person I wish I had growing up, and lo and behold, I was quote unquote the chillest sub that these fourth graders have ever had. And I became the person I wish I had growing up. Someone who understands that intelligence isn't always linear, and success doesn't always look traditional. But my journey didn't stop at teaching, as you guys know. As I grew into myself, I discovered entrepreneurship. I created in the pink. I realized that I did not have to limit my impact to one setting. I could build something bigger. I could use my voice like I'm doing right now, my experience and my story to create programs, support systems, and services that empower others, especially those who've been told no way too many times and they could count on both hands. And today, I am proud to say that I am both a teacher and an entrepreneur. I live at the intersection of education and empowerment, using my background not as a limitation, but as a launch pad. My 504 and IEP aren't signs of weakness. They're evidence of a system that tried to contain me and the strength it took to rise anyway. Growing up with money struggles taught me creativity, the value of dollar, and neurodivergence taught me adaptability. And dreaming big taught me that manifestation isn't magic, it's persistence plus purpose. Write that down. Persistence plus purpose equals manifestation. So if you're someone who's ever been underestimated, if you have been told to be realistic about your future, if you feel like you have to fight harder than others just to reach the starting line, I want you to know that I see you up close and personal, even though you're listening audibly to this podcast. And I'm here to remind you that your dreams are not too big. They're exactly the right size. You can be the exception, and you do not have to ask permission to begin.